Hello, everybody. Welcome to another edition of the Holistic Health Hour. This is Dr. Kevin Connors. We have several questions to talk about this, so let's get started. So remember, submit your questions on the course. All of our courses, the courses that allow questions, make sure you use that blue box down at the bottom to submit your questions so that we can get them answered, or at least as many as we possibly can. First question, can defects in my genes tell me what I should or shouldn't be eating? Can defects in my genes tell me what I should or shouldn't be eating? Well, that is a good question that does not have a perfect answer because the answer is really yes and no to some degree. So when you look at your full report, if you did your genetic report through us, we gave you a full genetic report, and then we gave you a summary report. So the summary report summarizes the genes that we think you should really focus on. So when I read your genetic profile, I gave you estimated what I think really you should be focusing on. But there's not a lot of genes that tell us specifically our diet. Not specifically. They give us clues. All of our genes give us clues. Even your HLA gene. So when we look at gluten, it's really your HLA genes and your IL-2, 21 genes, which are have to do with gluten sensitivity and with celiac disease. But even if someone has a lot of variants or defects in their HLA genes, it doesn't mean that they have gluten sensitivity. It means that they have a propensity to gluten sensitivity. So it'd be a good idea to maybe cut back on their gluten. The only way to know if you have gluten sensitivity, meaning you have antibodies to gluten or dairy or anything else, is to do an antibody test. So you have to do an antibody test, which is a food sensitivity test that is going to share with you if you have specific antibodies to gluten or gliadin or the peptides of gliadin and or casein, the protein that's in dairy. So that's a different test, but there are genes that give us a propensity towards gluten sensitivity and genes that give us a propensity towards lactose intolerance. So the HLA genes are connected with gluten, but again, you could have double allele defects on all those genes and you still have no gluten sensitivity. Most people shouldn't be anyhow, but that's another story. So I may make recommendations that you go on a gluten-free diet or limit gluten based upon your genes, but that's not based upon your antibodies. Likewise, the opposite is true. A person could have no gene defects in their HLA genes, but they have a very severe gluten sensitivity. Again, gluten sensitivity is not so much your genes. It has to do with your body made antibodies. It really has to do with gut health. And, you're in the course, so make sure you look at the videos where I explain all that. Now, dairy is a little bit different because the MCM6 genes, if you have defects or variants on those genes, you actually have a greater chance of digesting lactose better. If you have no variants on that, you have a greater chance of having difficulty with lactose. So that's one of those variants, if you want to drink milk, that it's good to have. So, but that's just the lactose. So that has nothing to do with the casein, which is really the major thing that people have issues with food sensitivities. It's not lactose, it's casein with dairy products. So it's a protein and the peptides of those proteins that you end up with antibodies to, that you end up with sensitivities. So answer to that, can genes tell you what you should or shouldn't be? Not really, but does give us clues. One of the best tests to run, if I think I might have mold in my house. So if you have mold in your house, then you want to get some mold testing done with some auger plates in your house. A good company is immunolytics.com. And I think I list that on the course. If you think you have mold in your body, then you really should do the mycotox test from Great Plains. And you'll see the listing for the mycotox test. You could do that through our store on all of those courses. So mold in your house versus mold in your body are two different things. If you have mold in your house, that's how you can pick up those spores and end up having mold issues, and it affects your health. So you do want to make sure that you get that checked out and test your house for mold and get that fixed and corrected through a professional company as well. Next question, I have had kidney stones in the past, but I don't have any defects in my oxalate genes. Why? Well, if I have defects in my oxalate genes, I do increase my propensity to have kidney stones and or gallstones, increased chance of stone formation if I have a lot of defects in my oxalate genes. But that's not the only reason why we get kidney stones. So even if they're oxalate stones, we still are, maybe you have a diet that you eat tons of oxalates. Maybe you eat a large number of oxalates and you are largely dehydrated on a regular basis. That could be a cause and a propensity for kidney stones right there, and you have no defects on your oxalate genes. So remember, genes give us clues. They give us pictures. They're not, give you, this is what you're going to have because you have this defect. There's a lot of people that have a lot of genes, a lot of defects on their oxalate genes, and they've never had stones, never had stone issues, and maybe never will. So that's okay. So again, genes give us clues. The huge benefit in running a genetic profile to me is that you can help address things before they become issues. So if you look at your genetics and you have tons of defects in your oxalate genes, getting on a product like Oxalate Scavenger and Oxalate Balancer can help pull those out of your body before you end up with a problem, can help you change maybe some dietary things before you end up with a problem, and can be a huge benefit. What is the best way to detox heavy metals? Well, the best way to detox heavy metals is don't try to detox heavy metals until you addressed all the other phases of detoxification. Most people want to jump right to chelating heavy metals, what I call phase 0, before they dealt with phase 6, phase 5, phase 4, phase 3, phase 2, phase 1. And that's where they get sick. So you start doing chelation of heavy metals. You've never really looked at your detox genes for phase 1, 2, and 3. You've never dealt with your constipation issues. You're not using binders in your diet to help bind things in the gut so you don't reabsorb them. You have a sluggish gallbladder. You have no business detoxing heavy metals. So if you are not in the 7 phases of detox course, think about taking that. That really helps walk you through all those phases. If you're in the 7 phases of detox course and you're addressing all those other phases, then I list out in phase 0 that section on the course on some good chelators that I would recommend. But make sure you're dealing with those other phases as well. All right, thank you guys for joining us today, and I hope you found this helpful. Know that I'll be praying for you, and continue to submit your questions as you do, because that's how we'll get them answered. All right, bye-bye.